Welcome to Peak Access, episode 2 of our Tour de France Femmes special. Today, Ruth Edwards and Joe Lewis are breaking down the race, every stage, every gap, every finish line, and the stories underneath it. What 5 years of investment in the sport actually looks like on the road, why women's road racing is the fastest growing and most exciting sport in cycling right now, and how the 2026 Race for Yellow might unfold. Let's get into it.
Tour de France Femmes. I am back, and we have replaced Alex with Ruth Edwards. Hey, Ruth, you want to give yourself a quick intro?
Hello. Yeah, Ruth Edwards, professional cyclist, currently on maternity leave. You might hear some baby quawks because got my little 8-week-old with me here today.
Special guest. Awesome. Not even an hour ago, this absolute banger of a stage finished. Vollering won the hardest hilly stage so far. 8 climbs, 2,900 meters in 31 degree heat. Right, she got caught up in an early crash. That was a few days ago, and managed to stay upright. So I think today as well. So second time in 3 days. She was all over it. Your thoughts, Ruth?
Yeah, Demi's looking super, super strong. Today was just really every day has been so hot, it seems, over there in France and in Switzerland. And then I think the whole FDJ team really set it up really well with those early breakaways. And then Demi obviously had a very clear plan for today and really was throwing everything she had at the race and ended up coming away with the win in the last, I don't know, Kasia looked like she almost had it there, but it was, a really good finish. Super exciting stage.
I thought she had it. It was heartbreaking to see her just get caught right at the line. I thought she had it in the bag.
Yeah, I think maybe even Demi thought that for a moment when I listened to her interview post race. But like she said, she had to just try, and she did, and she got it in the end.
Reusser, the time trial winner from yesterday, seemed to answer every single move. Couldn't get rid of her.
No, she's on fire. I think Royce has proved to be one of those riders. When she's on, and when she's not on, she's generally not on. And so she's a really fierce competitor when she's riding like this.
Another standout for me this week was Hogsett with her 85K solo ride.
Yeah, not many dry eyes, I think, after watching her interview after the stage there. She did just like, how many times do riders try that and it just like doesn't work out? And then it just worked out in like the most beautiful way for her 2 days ago. So yeah, it was really special to watch. And she was just so excited in her post-race interview. And I just felt bad for her. The next day was a TT. She didn't really get to enjoy her jersey for a day, but hopefully she managed to do the best she could with that.
What do you do when you've got a rider like Kopecky 15 seconds behind you? I mean, I'd certainly think I'm getting caught here any moment.
It sounded like she thought that was going to happen. Yeah, she said in her interview that she was like, maybe I should just go back. Getting second's pretty sweet. But she had the team car behind her, just encouraging her to keep going, keep pushing. And in the end, that's all you can do. And it's, not over till the line. And she proved that for sure.
Yeah, hell of a ride. First Norwegian to win a Femme stage. And afterwards, she said, it took everything she had to lift one arm.
Yeah. I love that. She was like, my boyfriend's going to be so mad at me for not celebrating, but I was just too dead to lift more than one arm off the bike. So it was really cute. It was just really sweet. One of those, just like so happy for her to get that, She went from, I looked on Instagram too, she had like 4,000 followers, and today she has like almost 15,000 followers, just like completely blew up. Just like, how cool.
Wow. Yeah, it's great to see the personalities behind these rides.
Yeah.
And you got X only entering Women's World Tour this season. So seems like they're really stepped up, and this yellow's got to be good for that team. Yeah,
for sure. They've been a strong team for the last couple of years, but moving into the World Tour recently.
A lot of crashes in these first few days. The one that stood out to me was at stage 3, 13K in on that opening climb, Vollering, Peters, Magdalene, the world champ. Yeah,
for sure. I think there's always, I don't know, hopefully you hope smaller crashes. I know some riders have already been out because of some crashes in the early days. It's just such a nervous bunch and just everybody kind of figuring out, and everyone wants to be at the front, and the roads are only so big. But that crash I don't think we saw, right? The coverage hadn't started. I think there was a replay or a video that I saw afterwards, but it wasn't actually included in the coverage.
Yeah, that was before they started that day. But
yeah.
I noticed today we got the whole thing.
Yeah, it was sweet. I turned it on already. I was like, holy moly, we got so much racing today. This is awesome.
I know. I got
it's
up
sad
and
that
I'm
that's
like,
not the. Sorry, that's sad. That's not the expectation, right?
Yeah, it's nice to see the race unfold from the beginning. And yeah, I got up today. I was drinking my coffee. I went to look at Peacock, and then all right, it's already going. I was expecting it to be starting 15, 20 minutes, but yeah, pleased to see that I could watch it from the beginning.
Yeah, same.
What you crash in a race like that. What's going through your mind? What does it take to get up and get back to that front group like Demi did?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the situation, where it is in the race, the time, how much stress you have. Like Demi knows what it's like to crash in a really stressful point in the tour and potentially lose it due to something like that. And I think just really early in the stage, you don't need to stress too much. You've got time. It's early in the race to get back, and hopefully you have your teammates close by to help. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened for them yesterday. And you just, I guess, want to check, make sure you've not done any damage to your body and get that sorted if you can. But it sounds like it was just a low speed, low consequence event for her, which if it's going to happen is the way you want it to happen, I suppose.
Definitely. What are you checking at the time versus like after the stage? Is there a checklist you go through in your head?
I think you know your body so well, right? As an athlete, like you get up and you can feel stuff pretty quickly. I think, again, it depends on the time of the race. And so she was so early in the stage, and I know they had a long climb to go up, but I doubt she would have been too stressed. So just take a moment to assess and just see if she was in pain anywhere. And then you can go back to the medical car in a race like this and just ask them to either give you some light painkillers, or if you need a bandage or something like that. And I think probably after that climb, she would have had time to go back and get checked out if she needed to be. But she looked pretty fine. I haven't heard anything from her in the media that she was banged up too much from it. And she obviously was super strong today. So she must have just gotten up and gotten straight back to work. It just happens sometimes in bike racing.
Yeah, it didn't seem to affect her too much today. She looked like she was on fire. But
yeah,
before we're jumping around a little bit here, but we can't forget Wiebes. Those first couple of Swiss sprint days, just absolutely dominant. Seemed like she knew what she had and she delivered on it.
Oh, for sure. I think the second day it was when I just juggling time with this little baby and trying to get out for a bike ride when I can too, and like watching the racing and all that. And I was watching the race, and at one point I just had to leave and go out the door, and I just told my husband, I was just like, just text me if she wins, because like that was pretty much what we thought was going to happen. And she did. And I watched the replay and I'm like, she didn't just win, she won by like 10 bike lengths. Like she's like, oh, and then I just started to sprint, and I'm like, yeah, and so did everybody else. You were just like, so the second you stand out of your saddle, she just she's gone. So she's super impressive. I really admire Lorena so much. She works so hard as an athlete, and just like really, really puts her head down. Like obviously she's talented and gifted in that way, but it doesn't come just because she's good at it. She really, really, like, her work ethic is really, really impressive, and it's cool to see how much she wins.
Yeah, that second day into Geneva without any teammates was incredible. I mean, she just found a spot and won by 10 bike lengths. So you got to be pretty dominant to do something like that.
Yeah. I wonder if every time Elisa Balsamo gets second, if she's like, oh, I won. Like I feel like when Van der Breggen and Van Vleuten were like at the top, if anybody got second to them, they'd be like, oh, I basically won, like if you just took them. And I wonder too, maybe in the men's side, if they get second to maybe Remco's like, oh yeah, well, if you just took Tade out, the rest of us would be so close. I practically won. So yeah, I don't know. It's just funny that she's just so dominant in those sprints, right? Just getting second to her is a huge achievement.
Yeah, if I wasn't born at the same time as a generational talent, I'd be the world champion.
Yeah, you got to take those though. If you're Balsamo or any other sprinter, just be really happy with that second place to them.
Definitely. It seems like really sprint heavy first couple of days, and then day 3, the selection behind Hougset came on the I'm gonna try this Côte de Chaux Champigny. It was that Cat 4. You got a better pronunciation?
No, definitely not.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that Cat 4 right towards the end. We actually have a file from that day that we can look at. We've got the automatic climb detection, and the one that is highlighted is this Cat 4. The thing that really stood out to me was this intensity factor. Yeah, everything else, the Cat 1, the 2 Cat 3s before it, 0.9, 9, 0.9. So those are a percentage of your threshold, so 90% basically for those first three, and then the Cat 4 right at the end where everyone just blew it up, 1.27, so 27% above threshold for 5.5 minutes. So really went down. That was a super interesting climb. There was a lot going on. There was a guy running up the side, falling down into the ravine. There was a guy in a deck chair almost getting wiped out by the peloton.
Yeah, it was an exciting entrance, that's for sure. And that's one of those ones where it really is, your outfit is going to change so much depending on like where in the peloton you are too. Like they were coming in so fast that if you got pinched and had to slow down, if you were like mid or rear peloton, that effort is going to hurt so much more.
That's the sort of thing the teams are probably identifying before the start of the stage, right? And
between like Google Maps and VeloViewer and all this stuff, like they'll be watching videos and sending Swannies up the road to take more in-depth video if they feel like it's really important. Everybody will be really informed.
And this Analyze 360 is from that same stage, right, Josh?
Yeah, that's for the whole stage.
Yeah, for the whole stage. So we can pretty clearly see towards the end there where that was the hardest part of the day. Got all this red here, so identified ahead of time that this is where it's going to blow up, and it did.
Yeah, it was really exciting to watch from behind.
Yeah, glad everyone stayed upright. Glad the guy in the deck chair didn't get wiped out. That would have been a headline, that's for sure.
Yeah, he made the headlines anyway, but in a more positive sense, didn't he?
Yeah, wasn't like that woman a few years ago that took out the Aliopa took out half the peloton. And then this time trial, that was an interesting one in Dijon. We're going to look at this file from the time trial. Yeah, we've got a 21 kilometer effort. You can see there's a normalized 274, average 254. Yeah, that tells us that there was some coasting. So obviously they're going pretty hard up to the start. Power balance, not 50-50, but pretty close. Typically anything within 5% is nothing to worry about. Watts per kilo, 4. So that'd be about double what I can do right now.
This is from a top 25.
Okay. Nice. 86 kilometers an hour and an average of 42. So absolutely ripping down that descent, maybe in the drops. And again, 38 degrees Celsius. So maybe that's where that power to heart rate decoupling number is coming from. But yeah, this was a top 25 rider, so they're going really hard. But Royce's project Dijon, she'd planned that since Christmas and looked like she absolutely nailed it. I mean, of course, with really all the climbing on the way up to the intermediate check and then 9K descent down into that flat finish.
Yeah, it looked like a really tough course with some parts of the course too that looked a little not dangerous, but just like you had to have your wits about you. Like you were going through some towns and the road surface looked really bad and some potholes, and just seemed like you got this beautifully wide, smooth road climb, and then also mixed in some like very French moments of small neighborhood, small towns and tight corners, and maybe not the smoothest road you've ever ridden. So
yeah, the pacing's interesting to that in a stage like that. You really wouldn't want to pace it evenly. You want to push it to the top of the climb and then hang on with whatever you've got on the descent. Seemed like we had some riders using as big as a 62 chainring.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I mean, you can't forget about the descent. You definitely want to push yourself all the way to the top of that climb. But if you have nothing, you still had to pedal quite a bit coming down. So you had to have still some gas just to be able to really get over the top and get on top of your gear and, I mean, go super fast. I think that's where Malin probably benefited a lot too, because she's just a bit of a bigger rider and got so much power that she'll just be able to push that gear straight up to a high speed, maybe faster than someone a bit smaller.
Yeah, I heard some speeds up towards 100k an hour, which pretty terrifying. And I don't think I've been quite that fast, but I've looked down at different points in my career and seen in the 90s and gone, oh, okay, this is pretty dangerous. But
yeah, for sure, especially in the TT bars.
Yeah, just lay on those things and pedal and pray, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was Malin. At one point, she went around a right-hand corner and it looked like she was going to end up like in the sidewalk, and she just like was using every inch of the road to go around some of these corners at the speeds that she was doing.
Yeah, the commitment. I'm sure she's really comfortable on that thing.
Yeah, no, she's very good at it.
Wild. Yeah, it seemed like she really executed it very well. I was looking at some of the splits, and there are some riders that they went really fast to the top of the hill, dropped off a little bit on that second half. There were some that picked up on that second half, so they obviously rode really fast down the hill, but she was first at the first split and first to the finish. So yeah, she knew exactly what she needed to do and she did it. Hogsett seemed like she paid the bill that day though.
Yeah, but also she has also said she'd like done zero TT training and just like, I don't know, wasn't prepared at all for it. So I think she probably gave her best effort, and she can only be proud of her tour so far for sure. But of course your legs are going to be tired when you've been riding solo for that long just the day before. Yeah, I thought Kasia Niewiadoma's ride was really impressive. She only finished 13th, but to finish just in front of Van der Breggen, and her history with TTs is not necessarily the strongest. So I thought she had, in terms of like the GC, a pretty solid ride. And then for Zoe Backstead was also another one I was impressed by. Like she's really, really good at TTs and was coming in as a favorite, I think, but she's not necessarily proven herself on anything with big climbs. And okay, a 3K climb is pretty decent. And I thought that she still was super impressive with her ride.
Ferrand, Prevost, Pauline, what were your thoughts there? She's been off the back a little bit these last couple of days. Might be disappointing being the defending champion.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not sure what she came into this one thinking or hoping. I would assume to win and repeat what she'd done in the past. But her TT was definitely put her on the back foot. And yesterday I was like, 2 minutes. Are you kidding me? Once we go up, Ventoux, she'll just no problem. And then today, obviously, I haven't actually looked at the GC, how far back she is now after today. I don't remember, but I feel like she lost another 2 minutes or something. Let me just look. She is, 17th, 5 minutes back on GC. And that's a bit more of an ask, for sure. Yeah. So I'm not sure what she'll be thinking now and what the discussions will be, but obviously the race win is out of the question, I would say, at this point for her.
Any other riders on that team that might do something later in the race, you think?
I mean, I think now at this point, they're probably going to have to start looking. They have Femke up there in 8th right now. So, I mean, anything could happen still with these long climbs. And she did look strong until I think it was that last climb today. It's like 15K to go or something. She was still there. And the long climbs, honestly, are so much different than the way that today was raced. Like you can be a punchy rider and do really well today and then do completely differently on a long, I mean, that climb's like an hour or something, like an hour and 15 minutes. So much can happen that day. But they might start to look at just playing a bit more with winning a stage or taking something else out from the race. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm sure they've got more than a few tricks up their sleeves. A lot of talent there. But we've had some incredible racing this year in the women's peloton. Seems like the sport's come a long way in these last 5 years. We've had women's tours before that have existed and stopped. Tour de Cyclist Féminine, the Grand Boucle, and La Course. That was that one day in Paris in 2014. how did that first race feel like inside the peloton when they brought that to life after that petition by Voss, Bertine, Pooley, a few others?
Yeah, the first when the course started showing up, I think everyone was pretty hyped. It was just I don't remember if it was the very first one, but I know for a while we were just doing laps around the Champs-Elysees, and I never actually did that. And sometimes it was awesome if it was dry, and if it was wet, it was just a disaster and just a bit stressful. But I think just racing in France and racing on the Champs-Elysees is just like such an iconic thing for sport, and the men have been doing it for so long that it's just known so well. And then it's just kind of progressed from there. And then it changed into a bit more of a road race, not just doing like circuit race laps around. And then now we have what we've had here. And I think that it's not just the Tour that's kind of grown. We've had like the Giro Rosa for a really long time, and that's been just such an iconic race on the calendar. And we've been racing stage races for a while, and then for whatever happened, and we decided to give us more of a Tour de France other than just a one day. And then it's just obvious that the racing has been really good because it's more televised, and there's just more sponsors with something like that's associated with something like the Tour de France, and just more eyeballs on it. And I think more people are just seeing what kind of has existed for a really long time. And I think, the first time I did the Giro Rosa in 2013 to now, like there was zero coverage and nothing. And in my mind, the racing wasn't that much different. There's just more people know about it, and there's maybe more women able to do it because we have more things that enable that, like salaries, and you don't have to work 3 other jobs to race necessarily, and just the depth of the field. And that's just all kind of coming together because of things like the Tour starting as a one-day race in 2014 and then kind of slowly building up to where we are now.
Nice. Yeah, good to see the progress. I know before 2020 there really wasn't any minimum salary there, so I'm sure that's helped. You mentioned that the riders aren't having to work 3 other jobs. Just for context for our listeners, the UCI created the Women's World Tour teams in, I think it was 2021. You started with a 15,000 euro or 15,000 euros in 2020, 20,000 euros in 2021, 27.5 in 22, 32,000 in 2023, and by 2025 it's at 38,000. So that's a 150% rise in 5 years. It also came with health insurance, life insurance, maternity leave, caps on race days, mandatory pensions. You raced before that floor existed. What did your contracts look like early on, and how did you make it work in the peloton when you started?
I mean, when I very first started, I think I signed a contract for $3,000, and that was like after I'd already been racing for a while. Like normally you just raced and you didn't make any money. And then I think this is like maybe 2014 or something. I think I signed a contract for $3,000, and it was so exciting, but obviously you can't live off of that. And now I make a very livable wage, and it's awesome. And I never ever thought I would in my life. So just coming through that is crazy. And now sometimes I'm like the young riders that'll sign for, I don't know, I think most riders that are young and starting, the minimum wage is only an amount of money that I got paid, I think, on my second or third year on Trek, which was in 2019, 2020, 21. So not that long ago, right? Like that was a lot of money for me to make, 30 grand. And now they're going to sign for more than that immediately. So, it's exciting for them. I don't hold any grudges. I'm glad that I get to see what it's becoming. But I know that there are some riders that really work to make it happen, and now they're not racing anymore, and they're like, oh gosh, now you could actually make a living and do this. And before we were just doing it because we wanted to do it and it was awesome, and why not? So it's really cool though. It's just the sport's growing so much, and yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
the maternity leave clause has been a a positive addition. It's something you've taken time away to start a family. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, yeah, when I started or when I was 25, I would have never thought that I was going to be able to have a baby and potentially return to the sport, right? Like, this is, especially as American, I thought that'll be it. Like, I'll have a baby and then I'll stay home. But because of the maternity leave that Lizzie Deignan and some others really pushed hard, and I think Trek at the time with them did a lot to push for, and are still doing a lot, like matching prize money and all this stuff on Trek, that they've done a lot to really elevate that women's team, and the other teams have followed along thanks to the UCI making some regulations. So if you're in one of the top 13 teams, so only 13 teams are World Tour, and if you were one of those 13 teams, there are a lot of rules that you have to follow. And one of the rules now is mandatory maternity leave. And what that looks like is you get paid 50% of your salary, but that 50% can't equal less than the minimum wage. So if 50% of your salary ends up being less, then you just get paid the minimum wage. And you get that for 5 months. And then after that or before that, and the team can kind of decide when to pay you that 5-month half salary. And for me, that was December through, would have been May-ish, around then. And they could have done it now. They could have done it whenever I first told them that I was pregnant. Like, it's kind of up to them when they pay you that. I think, at least, if I'm not wrong, 5 month, and then you go back to full-time salary. And then after that, you're given the grace period of recovery, and then you have to start training and getting back into it. And for me, in my case, my team knows that I'm not going to be ready to start racing this year. And my contract with them is only through the year, but I've had a really good relationship with them and plan to race with them again in the future. So that means for me, I'm going to return to racing afterwards. And now, again, talking about salaries again, I make a salary that's reasonable for me and my husband to consider just moving us over to Europe as a family and continuing to race, because, again, as an American, it's not practical to have a family and live in the US and race in Europe. And I've done it in the past when it was just me and my husband, and I flew around the world like a crazy person. And that's what I needed to do for my own, like, to get the best out of myself. I've done the sit in Europe by yourself between races, and I've done the get on an international flight. And for me, flying back and forth is what we chose to do. But now we're in a place where he's joked that he'll start the Girona Husbands Club. There's this joke that there's like the Girona Wives Club, and maybe he'll start the Girona Husbands Club, which I think is just like an amazing situation that we're in, that we can possibly just talk about that.
Cool. And just to clarify, it's 5 months at half, and then you go back to your full-time salary?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think I have better maternity leave than almost anybody else in the US right now. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's very amazing for most people over here. So
probably healthcare too, but
no, still got to get US healthcare.
I mean, it seems like really every peloton on Earth's getting faster right now. We've seen a lot of gains in fueling, aero, training science. Just seems like the women's side is improving fastest because it started professionalizing last. That marginal dollar will buy more improvement there than anywhere in cycling. And one sponsor that seems to have discovered that, and the big story of the tour, was this Red Bull announcement for FDJ. Its first ever full team partnership in women's cycling, with team getting access to the Red Bull Athlete Performance Center and Bollering Sign through 2028. It's obviously a company that measures marketing return better than anyone in sport, and they've decided that Women's World Tour is where it's at. We've also got the Decathlon announcing a brand new women's team launching next season. So grid's expanding. What does a sponsor like that coming into the peloton do?
Yeah, I think right now just more people with eyes on the sport is only going to be positive, right? So if you bring in a big sponsor with already a lot of fans from potentially other sports, or just like so much world viewage that has, like, I don't know, that the Red Bull has, right? Like, that's just going to bring in a whole new crew of people that if they put out an advertisement or something that's involving World Tour riders, then I think that's only just going to do positive things. I think just hopefully one big sponsor just leads to more big sponsors.
How much did Kate Courtney, do you think, have an impact on all this in the US market?
I don't know. I think it obviously is all connected. Like, you can't deny the fact that what she's doing and what she's up to and her current already Red Bull sponsorship, but I'm sure they were already considering it. Like, I'd heard rumors that Red Bull wanted it to have a tie with the women's team, and it makes sense with what they're doing on the men's side and the specialized kind of component of what FDJ already have going on. And then I think Kate Courtney's spot on the team obviously came on the back of her really showing so much interest in road, and honestly, like, doing super well for not having any experience. And then between maybe Elise Shabby away on maternity leave, another bonus for the teams is that they can hire a rider to basically replace your rider away on maternity leave. So I think between Shabby being out, Red Bull already being interested, having that connection between Kate and then that spot being open, there's like a lot of things that kind of came together for that to happen for her. It looks good in the national champ stripes too.
Definitely. Yeah. National champ stripes and a Red Bull helmet. Yeah. Not a bad setup. I know it's kind of the dream, that Red Bull helmet for any cyclist or athlete. This extra money, I mean, the first thing more money and a bigger salary buys is as those hours back. But, along with that, there's a lot more investment in the training and sports science side of things. You race under that old system, you're building your comeback under the new one. So, what did training week look like for you in your first career versus, the build you're doing right now and how you'd be doing things next?
Yeah, honestly, I was also so young when I started, and now I'm an older rider. So I think for me personally, it's a lot different, just regardless of what the peloton is doing. But I think one way it looks a lot different is not necessarily what I'm doing on my bike, but the way it's communicated with a team. A lot of the time, a team will have 1 to 5 coaches within the team, and there's a lot of eyes on what it is that you're doing. So my account will have 5 to 10 coaches, whether that's my personal trainer or, the DS on the team or the other coaches on the team. So one way it looks really different is just the ability to have more than one set of eyes on what you're doing and more than one opinion, I suppose. And then the team also will have a good idea of what it is you're doing and how prepared you are maybe for a specific race or event. And that's probably the biggest change, more than like literally what I am doing. I think I've had the same coach for a long time, Ben Day. He's coached me for like 9 years. So I don't think that necessarily the method of what we've done has changed a whole lot. There's been a lot of talk of like maybe hours need to increase because a lot of girls, now that they have more time and it can be a full-time job, like are able to train so much more than we potentially were in the past. It's always been kind of my full-time job, I suppose. I've had like little half-time, like part-time jobs on the side, but time hasn't necessarily been a restriction for me. So I think that my training has changed more just because of my age and where I am than necessarily what's happening in the peloton. But like I said, having all these coaches that work within the team has been a huge difference. Before it was just like, okay, off you go home, and now you come back, and now the teams just have eyes on you all the time.
Interesting. Yeah, so just more resources and staff around in the training side of things.
Yeah, and a lot of teams will mandate that you're coached by somebody on the team. It's more, I think, common that you're coached by in-house coaches than you are having your own independent coach.
Is there much, obviously there's a lot more awareness around, Red S. I've seen a lot of that in the news. Cycle tracking, are those things that are kind of on the radar of the staff at your team, or things you've had experience with?
That, I think, is a little bit left up to rider comfortability about talking about their cycle with their coach and everything, but who pays more attention to it, I think, are these team doctors. So again, if you're World Tour, you have a lot of these rules and regulations, and another one of the rules is that you have to have doctors within the team. And we do screenings now for your period basically, and like when was your last cycle, and are you on birth control, and they want to know all of this like kind of hormonal stuff that's going on the side, which I personally think is great because I've been a very open book with my coach in the past about what's going on. And I hope that most women, and I want all women and girls to feel really comfortable with their coaches talking about it, because I think it's just such an important part of just your health as a human, and you have such a long life to live, hopefully, when you're just starting the sport. And then also, yeah, how it can affect your training, just your longevity in your career, even. Like, it can, if you put yourself in a hole as a 22-year-old, then your career as a 29-year-old might look a lot different than if you're really healthy.
Yeah, hopefully you live a lot longer than just your cycling career. So there's a lot to do after that. You've got to look after your body.
For sure.
Yeah, I first got interested in menstrual cycle aware programming after seeing Stacey Sims speak at a TrainingPeaks conference at CU years ago. I mean, it might have been 2015. And she, that was super interesting. And since then, it's something that I have talked to my female athletes about. I noticed that there was that article from Faulkner earlier this year about her, the AI she's building, and how she's overlaying her recovery and training data with her cycle, and that's something that I have started doing with a couple of my athletes, and those are pretty interesting insights. And I think that any listeners that menstruate out there, if you're training, start by just logging your cycle along your training load and see if you can spot those patterns. How do you feel in training at different stages of your cycle?
Just having really good awareness around it. You might see trends, and one day maybe you feel like shit and you're just going out and you're going training, and instead of giving yourself such a hard time of why you suck as a bike rider that day, you can be like, oh, it's because I'm going to start my period tomorrow, and I know that because I've been tracking it. And the number of times that I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense now. It's like like I understand why I feel this way. It's just really helpful, because we like to really beat ourselves up, I think, as these type A athletes, and just find an excuse to give ourselves a hard time. But sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just need to dial it back, maybe 10 watts, do the best you can that day, and then restart the next day, because you never know.
Yeah, good to know a little bit more. I've certainly had those days on the bike where you just feel horrible and you want a little more information. Not that I have a menstrual cycle, but
it's still applicable, maybe in a different way.
For
just
sure.
Record different things. Yeah, there's a lot that can affect it.
The well, obviously we've got a lot of money at the top of the sport, but below that, there's still, below those top two tiers, there isn't any minimum salary at all. We've got Conti, domestic riders, that development level that still sometimes pay to be on teams. I saw a Riders Association survey asking why women leave the sport early, and as we had alluded to, that top answer is money. Talent pool seems like it's bigger than the funded pool. So we are still losing riders along the way. I sit on the board of CCB Women's Cycling. They're a development team, and this is kind of that level where that gap lives. They jump from the domestic program to the World Tour. It's a pretty big chasm in this sport. Hopefully the Red Bulls of the world are jumping into that gap as well. We've certainly got some good teams here in the US, like CCB 2028, which I believe you were on, Ruth, right?
2028. Way back. It was called ProMan at the start, and then Peanut Butter and Company, but you were right. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, they've been doing it for years. I guess just relying on domestic
probably like
sponsors.
2007 or something, a long time ago. Yeah. For sure. I think, and also just watching the racing in the US, right? Like, the opportunities are really slim. So you have to be pretty committed to try and go over to Europe. And how do you have the money to do that? And that's why I think historically in the US, we've actually seen older riders have success. Like Katie Hall and Megan Gagne they had gone to college and they'd had a little bit of a career, and they maybe had some savings, or they had some financial something already that could help them kind of move over to Europe or race on the national team, and then get that going. And I guess even Kristen Faulkner right now, there's fewer of American riders who have been successful at a younger age. And it's because of that like financial ability to get over there and do it. And we typically see people go through college or just are a bit more stable before they're able to make that jump, because it's just they can't afford to do it earlier. And so right now in the US, it's great to have these teams with younger riders and try and support them. But like you're saying, that next jump is quite big. And how do you do that and make it happen, particularly with, just not very many opportunities in the US. So we've got Philly coming back this year, and some stuff in Redlands has been going strong for ages. But yeah, when I started racing, we had Philly and Tour of California, and even had some Tour of Colorado, and just like so many races going all the time. And European teams would sometimes do Redlands or San Dimas or Merced or whatever. There was just stuff going on all the time. So hopefully it can pick up a little bit. Spike racing is still important in the US, just everyone's doing gravel racing. We just need to convince them all that road racing is the way to go.
It'll come back around. Gravel's a new road.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what else can I be doing? Oh, if you guys heard of this road racing thing, it's the new gravel. Hopefully, more people riding bikes. That's good for the sport.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to give gravel a hard time. Like, that's when I'm get hopeful, because I'm like, cycling's so big here. They're doing it. There's people out there,
Yeah, no more than a couple of athletes that I know that have moved over to gravel just because that's the way to have a professional career and live in the US.
Yeah.
We're 5 stages in, and we've got some very hard bike racing ahead of us. We've got world time trial champion Yellow, and some of the best climbers behind her, with Von 2 in the way.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think Kamalin has a really good chance. And Damie's got a work cut out for her, and Kasia's looking really strong. The gaps behind them start to get a bit bigger, so maybe they'll be allowed to go away in a breakaway, and that can always change stuff too. It's just going to be a really, really exciting next couple of days.
You want to call it? Have you got a pick?
I think Mullen's going to win. I don't know. Yeah. I think she can do it.
Okay.
But we'll see.
She's just that diesel that's going to sit at the same pace while the other riders are attacking her and just drag them back.
Yeah. I mean, Damie did kind of gaff her a little bit today on the end of that climb, but it had been so punchy, like stop, go, that I don't know. I think on a long climb like that, she might just be able to keep her close. But it's not that much space between them right now. So Damie's also looking great.
You think anyone in this field can distance Demi when she's on?
I don't know. People have been trying for a couple of years now. She tends to still beat him. So we'll see. It's not impossible. Yeah. Kaz just proved that it's not impossible.
She's won this bike race before.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Right here. Yes, exactly. We got Wiebes in green. Yeah, the sprinters have definitely had a hard couple of days. Yeah, every point of hers came on roads that really we're not going to see much of in the rest of this race. Got Peters in poker. She doubled her lead to 37 today. She was in the break from the start of the race. I know she was targeting that jersey all along, as we saw in her time trial. She's taking it pretty easy. And she's certainly racing like she wants it. We'll see how she gets up Von 2 for pile of points.
Yeah, she's looking super strong. I mean, she's obviously targeting that, so she'll do everything she can.
Yeah, she's an exciting rider. White, we've got Niedermeyer taking it today. Holmgren, 25 seconds. Blasi, now third.
Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about UAE at all. Like, they kind of nowhere right now. There was so much talk about them between Eliza and Paul Blasi and what they were going to do and all of that tactics. And now I'm like, oh, well, now what are you going to do?
I know. Yeah, they've been interesting. Yeah, it seems like she's going somewhere else, and so they're putting her to work. Is that a pretty typical thing?
I wouldn't say so. No.
No. Okay. Just that team. All right.
Talking trash.
What's that?
It's hard to know. It's hard to know from the outside. So.
For sure.
People like to also create drama and make stories. Who knows how real that is?
Oh yeah, makes it fun. But all right, little transitional stage. Friday, Von 2, first time in this race history. Stage 8. Got the drag race, 175k from Sisteron to Nice. The longest day, fast finish on tired legs after all the climbing. And Sunday, we got that circuit in Nice, 100K with 3,300 meters of climbing, full mountain stage where, we could see some movement in the overall GC on that final day. It'll be an exciting finish.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a good breakaway day. I think there might be one of those 2 race situations going on that day.
Awesome. All right. Well, we can get into the workout of the week. I kind of want to throw back to that Cat 4 on stage 3. It made me think of a workout that I did a lot when I was racing. There was a conversation I had with Lachlan Morton actually about climbing. I was always a sort of sprinter that was just trying to get over climbs and be the fastest guy left when everyone else got dropped. I was trying to get over these climbs. I was doing like 20, 30-minute threshold efforts and bumped into Lockie out on a ride here. And he was saying that he was only really training short efforts, 5, 10 minutes. He'd mentioned that everyone sprints at the bottom of the climb and they ease up, ride threshold tempo. So, that first punch, it was really just about surviving that first punch with some gas left in the tank. That Cat 4 file, that's really that punch on paper, right? You got 3 climbs at 0.9 IF and then 127% over threshold for 5.5 minutes. Then that race is settled. We had Voss on the podium that day, right? She's 2 decades into her career, still surviving that better than anyone. And she's really that archetype. She can get through that first 5 minutes with anybody. So the workout, I don't know what I exactly called them when I was doing it, but for this podcast, we'll call them bookends. We've got a couple of different versions. 30-second, you call it a sprint or, VO2 effort. Typically try and do it about 130 to 150% of FTP, straight into 2 minutes at or just above threshold, and then you finish with 30 seconds all out. So that's version 1, the 3-minuter, and I also did 5s, and you'd bring those bookends down a little bit in intensity, and you're always finishing with an all-out effort. Rest for 5 minutes easy between them, 3 to 5 minute intervals depending on the demands of your race. And I think the big takeaway out of those is like climbs don't drop you your threshold. It drops you by going over your limit at the bottom, or if we want to throw back to an earlier episode, draining that W prime in that shakeout in the first few 100 meters of the climb.
That's some of my favorite workouts though, because you just like kill yourself so hard and it doesn't matter in training because you don't have to keep going, but it does help you for the race.
Yeah, you get used to doing that in training. It makes the racing easier.
Prepared. It makes you prepared, Joe.
Makes you prepared. Exactly. All right. So yeah, Ruth, we had you. You've picked your Von 2 and your overall. Yeah, I guess who's my pick? I'm going to pick Demi. She looks so good today. I think she can do it. She's a pretty tenacious rider. I love her stuff on social media. So I'm gonna choose her
for event 2 or for the GC.
For the GC.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll just throw it out there. I'm sure we're going to see Natalie Quinn in a breakaway later in this tour. I know she's looking at these last couple of stages.
Definitely. Go Nat.
Go Nat. I do coach her just to full disclosure. Great. All right. Well, 6 years ago, this sport didn't have a minimum salary. This week we had Red Bull buy-in. 4th category hill split, the deepest peloton women's cycling's ever had. And on Friday, someone's going to win on Mont Ventoux for the first time in the race's history. I'll be watching. Thanks for riding along. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.
Hannah, TrainingPeaks.
Thanks a lot, Ruth.
Thanks for listening to Endurance Unlimited. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on your platform of choice to never miss new episodes. Also, be sure to leave a 5-star rating to let your coach and the algorithm know you're ready to dial in your training. Find more resources to help you take on your next challenge at TrainingPeaks.com or find us on social media at TrainingPeaks. Got questions? leave a comment or send an email to podcast@trainingpeaks.com. Good luck in whatever you're training for, and trust the process to reach your potential.